Welcome back to the Watchlist. Today we're gonna suit up and be discussing the hit legal show Suits. I'm Pranav.
I'm Rashab. I'm Akshar.
I'm Samay.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Pranaya.
Suits is not prestige TV. The writing is not quite up to par with Breaking Bad, and the stakes are not even remotely the same as Game of Thrones. But it blew up on Netflix years after it ended and became one of the most watched shows on the platform. And I think the question we're going to discuss is why, when it doesn't have the same stakes as these other shows.
I mean, honestly, like, after watching it, I think the answer is simpler than what people, like, try to say. Like, the show is just honestly really watchable. Like, I can sit down, eat some dinner, and just watch it. And, like, I don't have to pay so much attention to, like, all the characters and plot versus something like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, where there's so much more, I guess, like, complexity to it.
That wasn't accidental, though. The show, it's tight-paced. The dialogue is fast, but it's still easy to follow. And every episode has a problem, but finishes up with a resolution.
Yeah, it's a comfort show. Like, I mean, it is quite extravagant, but it's a comfort show. You know that Harvey's gonna win. You know Mike is gonna find the angle, and he's gonna win. The pleasure is in watching how, not wondering if. And it does get a little repetitive. Like, for me, like, by season 5, it was like the same old. But it's still extremely satisfying to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And, like, each episode, when you see how Harvey gets out of these difficult situations and how he mentors Mike, and just, like, how cool it is that, like, Mike is able to remember everything, it's, like, it's completely different to, like, the shows that we talked about, like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, but it builds tension by making you, like, genuinely uncertain. You're not, like, sure, like, how he's going to get out of the situation, but, like, you know what's going to happen, and you can also, like, kind of feel the aura that Harvey has, and, like, you can kind of relate to it.
And now to actually set up the show, because the way that they frame the characters through lenses of good and evil and moral struggles is almost similar to Breaking Bad in a way. So to get into that, here's Akshar.
Yeah, so I think the main character in the show is definitely Harvey Specter, and he's, like, the junior partner at, like, the firm they work at, Pearson Hardman. And he's, like, I think some of, like, the biggest character traits I've seen him is, like, he's really sharp. He's very arrogant, actually, and, like, he always dresses to, like, impress, I guess. Like, he's always wearing the best suits. I think, like, there's been so many clips of him talking about that. And I think that really shows his, like, character. And then, like, I think the biggest part is where he found Mike Ross. Like, the iconic scene of him, like, running away from the cops. Like, I mean, that was crazy, right, Pranav?
Yeah, so Harvey actually hires Mike illegally. Mike never passed the bar, never went to law school, and never got any degrees, and Harvey knows that. And the entire show is built, from that point forward, it's built on that secret. Mike's doing the work of a Harvard-trained lawyer while being completely unqualified on paper.
And the tension of their secret being exposed runs through the first 5 seasons. Every new character introduced is a potential threat, and every case is too. And I don't know, I just think that this legal drama was so interesting to watch.
Yeah, but honestly, I'll say the supporting cast gives the show, like, a lot more depth. Like, Louis Slate, I love Louis Slate. Yeah, he was one of my, like, favorite comedy characters, like, ever. He's always there, always provides comic relief. He's very consistent in that. He's petty, he's insecure, but he's also brilliant, and sometimes he's, like, genuinely sympathetic.
Yeah, and one of my favorite characters, I think it's Ryan's too, is Donna.
Oh,
Donna!
Donna.
My favorite character too.
What a woman.
Yeah, and she basically runs the firm emotionally. She, like, her confidence is on another level. She, like, has this ability where she could just, like, read anybody. She always knows what's happening, and she's Harvey's secretary, and she always knows what Harvey wants. Like, she can read him so well. And then there's also Jessica Pearson, and she's, like, the boss. She's the one who runs the firm. Her name is on the wall, and she basically built that firm.
Now to talk about the dynamic between Harvey and Mike, because the relationship is the spine of the whole show, and there's some really interesting reflections of each other, and they learn from each other.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Ryan. Like, Harvey, I think he's kind of like the mentor to Mike in, like, a ways, but, like, in the show, he never says that he's, like, the mentor. Like, he's almost like he's, like, too proud to say it. Yeah. And, like, a lot of the seasons, he's, like, he pretends like this relationship is, like, purely, like, transactional. Like, they're trying to gain from each other. But, like, overall, it's kind of, like, clear that they do care for each other, as, like, especially as the later seasons go on.
Yeah, in the same way, Mike's the conscience. He keeps asking whether what they're doing is right or wrong. And Harvey's answer is always, like, some version of, like, what we do. We do what we do to have to win. But Mike pushes back. And Harvey usually wins the argument, but Mike usually wins the moral point.
And Mike's whole character arc is basically about whether talent and hard work can act as a substitution for credentials. Because honestly, he does a better job than most people who went through the legitimate path of, like, going through Harvard law and all of that. And basically, I feel like the show is just genuinely asking whether the piece of paper matters if the person can actually do the work.
And this is kind of complicated because, spoiler alert, later in the show, Mike ends up going to prison for fraud. He was frauding being a Harvard trained lawyer, and that was pretty interesting because the show can't fully commit to saying the credentials don't matter without consequences. So they gave him consequences, and they rehabilitated him anyway.
Yeah, and realistically, like the fraud, he should have collapsed in season 1 by like any real standards. But the number of people, there's so many people that find out, and they just keep going along with it. And even when it goes to trial, they actually talk to the jury, and they just like love his story so much. They love him as a person, and they actually they were gonna rule him not guilty if he didn't take the deal to go to prison for 2 years.
And I think that raises another question where he gets caught in season 5, just about halfway through the show. Does keeping that going for 5 seasons and then getting rid of it, which basically kind of held the whole show up, Mike's big secret, does that ruin the show, or is it impressive writing, or is it just lazy? Is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, like, I don't know. I think it's like good that they keep finding ways to like extend the show, especially as like somebody who keeps wanting to watch the next season. But I feel like it's trying more than it needs to. Like, it's kind of lazy on their part to keep extending it purely for like profit. And I think after season 5, the storyline definitely drops in quality. It feels like it's being milked,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but the show knew that too. Like, the fraud's not really what the show's about. It's the premise. What the show is actually about is relationships and loyalties and what it means to be something in a world that like gatekeeps everything.
And I think that's why it still works even when the plot is like declining. Like the character dynamics carry the show, especially like at the end of the show when the plot just goes downhill. They start introducing these new characters. The show is still good because they keep these character dynamics like throughout the show.
And then digging deeper into some of the thematic elements in these relationships that are worth taking seriously, even if the show itself kind of lets them go episode to episode and doesn't really continue the storylines. There's still interesting things to explore in their dynamics.
I also want to talk about Harvey Specter because I think he's like one of the most like interesting characters throughout the whole show. Like he honestly is like so inspirational like for so many like kids who watch the show. I think like so many people thought that they could become a lawyer or want to become a lawyer after watching this.
Yeah,
because like you see like how Harvey Specter like how he carries himself. Like he just seems so cool, like so inspirational, and I feel like his confidence. A lot of people just like want to be like him.
I feel like at least for the first few seasons, you have Mike, who's the epitome of all talent and no training. Louis Litt, who's the epitome of no talent and all training. And then Harvey Specter just kind of epitomizes everything you want to be.
Louis had some talent.
He had some talent, but he had to work harder than others.
Yeah. Okay, I feel like one thing though, like Harvey does not seem like a real person.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
He never loses, like honestly, like in ways that like actually change his character. Like I mean, yeah, he does lose.
Nah, he's just like that.
He plays the man, not the hand. Like, that's so stupid.
No, that's
like,
tough. Stop. All right, but like in 2 episodes, like he might have like some issue, but it always just resolves.
He got his name
and,
removed from
Yeah,
the
he
wall
has-
and got to put back on. Like,
He has so much plot armor. It's ridiculous.
But the fantasy specific though, like Harvey's not just competent. He's one of the most confident guys I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely.
Like he never walks into a room unsure of himself, and even if he's like doubting himself internally, he never shows that to his opponents.
I like that. Yeah.
And there's just like a reason why that's so appealing to watch on your screen. I feel like people early on in their careers, they're just so unsure of themselves, and Harvey's just the complete opposite. He's just so confident, and that feeling of unsureness just never resided in him.
And like the danger of that fantasy is that it's also fantasy of never being accountable. Like Harvey gets away with so many things constantly throughout the show just because he's Harvey. Like he hires a fraud and he gets away with it. Nothing happens to him. He does so many things during the show that border on the line of just being illegal, and he gets away with it. And the show frames that as admirable rather than being like a structural issue.
And I think that connects to something that the show definitely didn't intend as a critique, but ends up doing anyway, and that is...
I would say the glamorization of like corporate law, and like what I'm trying to say is like, I think they make corporate law look too interesting. Like in reality, as like much as I hate to say it, it's definitely a lot like more litigated, like a lot of paperwork and stuff. But like the way that they show it on like the show with all like the legal maneuvers they do, all like of the stakes, I feel like in a way they don't make it really realistic. Like they kind of make it too good to be true.
Yeah, and they also skip over some of like the more immoral parts, because a lot of corporate law is pretty like immoral, and a lot of and people just focus on like the coolness and like the money factor, but they don't but the show doesn't really like delve into like the other more realistic like parts of corporate
Immoral
law.
in what way?
And
I mean, okay, like I would say it's like the litigation, like for a lot of corporate law cases, they try to find like loopholes in like legal text, and I feel like in a lot of these things, like especially with like health insurance, it's like really immoral as like you like I don't know, Ryan, I think you said something. Right?
Yeah, I feel like you see, especially Mike, you see him out in the streets way too much. He's running after people, trying to have these elaborate conversations, convincing people to change their minds and do the right thing, which just doesn't exist. In corporate law, everything's done through paperwork and I guess now emails.
Yeah.
You don't see, like there's this one case with a water company where Mike is trying to fight against them, and he does everything in his power to like collect all these witnesses and convinces them to do the morally right thing, even if they don't want to go through a whole like rigmarole for it. And that just doesn't happen in real
yeah,
life.
it's just not realistic.
Pranav, what'd you have to say?
Like about how the elegance of every legal maneuver. Like I think it's also because all the clients are like they're usually like super wealthy. They're corporations.
In the show?
Yeah.
In the show, they're corporations, billionaires, powerful people, part of like powerful industries. And the show never really asks like whether they deserve to win. The question is just like how do we win for them always.
Oh yeah, to build on what you guys are saying, there's like so many episodes, like countless episodes where like the firm is defending corporations against workers, whistleblowers, like people who are genuinely wronged, and the show frames it as like a sport. Harvey wins, everyone celebrates, no matter how Harvey does it. Like I even saw like videos online saying like of lawyers saying like nothing is realistic, like how Harvey goes about it's like just not realistic at all.
Yeah, when you take a step back, it's actually kind of wild. Like, we always find ourselves rooting for the lawyers of the powerful who have all these resources against the powerless in almost every episode. And the show, like, never really makes us resonate with that, I feel.
And like it's another perspective. It's like I always wonder why like legal drama is never really focused on like following public defenders. Like the show The Good Wife. I don't know if you guys watched it, but it gets close sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But like these like these big prestigious like law shows, like kind of Better Call Saul. Like they talk about more like corporate law, like criminal defense maybe if it's more interesting, like Better Call Saul. But it's never the underfunded lawyer with 40 cases who can barely keep up and is doing their job to defend the common man, which you see more often in real life.
Yeah, and the story never, because that story just doesn't look like what you want a legal drama to be. It's a legal drama. I mean, somebody said Better Call Saul. There's flashes of that, but even still, you find Saul defending big banks and things.
And you find him defending cartel leaders, but that's for another time.
Yeah, and then honestly, I would say that like Suits itself, like all the glamour they have in it, like especially like making the suits themselves and like the office building, like how nice it is. I feel like it really gives like kind of like an idealized view. Like honestly, that's not what corporate law looks like. And I feel like one of the biggest issues with Suits is it tries to be accurate, but in reality, it's not even accurate to corporate law and like paints a false picture when there's so many things wrong with corporate law. Yet in Suits, it kind of seems like honestly like a dream, I guess, right?
Yeah, and this has like real life consequences for the way that people think about the justice system. Like if your entire reference points are gonna be like for lawyers, gonna be like Harvey Specter, or the other lawyers in Pearson Hardman, you're gonna be deeply unprepared for what the actual legal system looks like.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're going to have a flawed view of the world because of that, seeing how they defend these big corporations. And in real life, if you really ask people, they're not going to believe the majority of the ideals that these lawyers are pushing for these corporations.
Yeah, to add on to what you're saying, like the actual legal system is like overworked public defenders and like a bunch of cases that everybody has to do, plea deals not taken because people are guilty, and just like people firms running out of money because these things cost too much. But like none of that's present in Suits. You just see Harvey walking about doing whatever he can and like wants to win basically.
But to play devil's advocate, like, Suits is not trying to be a documentary about access to justice.
Yeah.
It's like, it's trying to be entertaining and keep the viewers entertained.
Yeah, but like entertainment shapes perception, like whether it's trying to or not. Like you see like people, like kids watching the show, like glamorizing this sort of lifestyle, and that's like it's not realistic. I think that's the whole point. Like when you get older and you watch this stuff, you got to think more critically, like about what you're watching and see like is this really like realistic? Are they like portraying it accurately?
That's true.
Yeah.
And to pivot from that, from a meta standpoint, let's talk about the Netflix resurrection of the show, because it's kind of interesting from a cultural standpoint of what was going on at the time.
Yeah, so that's like a good point, Ryan. Suits ended in 2019, but by like 2023, it still is one of the most watched shows on Netflix in America for like weeks straight. And I think like a big like thing about that is it's been gone for 4 years, yet it's still one of the top shows, and it really shows like I guess the replayability of Suits, you know?
more than 4 years, like
They
7
started in
years.
2011. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying
But it ended
ended in 2019.
No, it's been 7 years since it ended,
Oh,
actually, and it's
damn.
still a chart topper.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and the audience that was watching it that are watching it in 2026, it's not the audience that watched it when it first aired. Like the audience watching it today, they were in middle school when Suits actually aired, or even younger.
So like a lot younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially the audience watching it today, it's a completely different standpoint from watching it live. You know, when you're watching it live, you're waiting week to week. What's going to happen to these characters? Seeing it from another perspective, especially if you've already had the show spoiled for you, you can kind of view it through the lens of what's going on in the world now, how we view corporations, versus how we viewed them, say 10 years ago when the show was in the middle of its run. And I feel like the show is honest. It's not trying to be like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones. It's trying to be the best version of an entertaining legal drama, and that makes it succeed because it does succeed in that. It's interesting writing. It might not be the most compelling characters, and next week we're gonna get Invincible.
Yeah.
All right.
Ooh.
Bye, guys. Thank you for
See
watching.
you guys next week.